During the 1990s, we tended to label congressional temper tantrums for what they were: standard, boring budget impasses. Now, though, news outlets have taken the famous line from Spinal Tap seriously, turning the volume up to 11 by portraying the latest budget standoff as a big bad fiscal cliff. Ooh, complete with doomsday countdown clocks, gaudy NFL-style graphics, and of course, endless Twitter hashtags. If anyone outside the Beltway was paying attention last week, a big if, they probably thought fiscal cliff referred to an old episode of Cheers, in which the goofy mailman does his taxes. After all, replaying reruns would have been more compelling content than this latest installment of what we should call real-world U.S. Capitol. Reality TV, of course, is the moment's perfect metaphor. It's perfect. That format's oxymoron. It's real, but it's not really real. That defines politics today. Think about it. In the fiscal cliff melodrama, we heard that John Boehner dropped the F-bomb on Harry Reid, and we saw a congressman pull teary-eyed confessionals about how much they supposedly love the middle class. Yet those of us watching at home almost certainly sensed that the outcome of all this was as scripted as an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. To appreciate how this bait and switch works to fool us all, consider the three big outcomes of the fiscal cliff that Washington's reality TV show never highlighted. Number one, the end of Bill Clinton's tax rates. Let's review. President Clinton's tax rates delivered big budget surpluses and one of history's strongest rates of economic growth. President Bush's tax cuts, his cuts to those tax rates, gave us massive deficits and the slowest rate of economic growth in modern history. Yet, faced with the fiscal cliff's choice between Clinton and Bush tax rates, both parties agreed to ratify almost all of Bush's. For Republicans, this was a huge win. The victory was summed up by Bush's own spokesperson, Ari Fleischer, who said, "It's fantastic." For Democrats, their triumphant rhetoric about their one small win, restoring Bill Clinton's tax rates on income above $400,000, that obscures a humiliating truth. Essentially, the party that spent the 1990s restoring fiscal sanity after the Reagan binge was bullied into undoing much of its own fiscal legacy. Number two in the fiscal cliff story. Nobody in Washington cares about deficits. Nobody. During December's Fiscal Cliff TV show, Washington's reality stars told us that they were focused on reducing the budget deficit, but according to the Congressional Budget Office, the final bill will increase the budget deficit, increase it by $4 trillion. Number three, corporate welfare can never be touched. For all the effort to make wasteful spending the villain in the Fiscal Cliff TV show, Congress ultimately refused to touch that spending. Somehow, defense contractor payouts in the Pentagon budget were off the table. Somehow, subsidies to corporate agribusiness were separate from the negotiations and then extended. Meanwhile, the final fiscal cliff bill included taxpayer handouts for everything from NASCAR racetracks to Hollywood studios to a new Goldman Sachs headquarters in Manhattan. You cannot make this up. Now, if you find these facts more depressing than the fantasies that dominated the public version of the fiscal cliff, then you appreciate why so many Americans prefer reality TV over genuine documentary. A shrink-wrapped, seeming reality, hyped for maximum effect, is sure more pleasant to watch than actual reality. Congress and the political media knows this, so they give viewers what they think we want. The problem is that the real story gets lost in translation, leaving us at once totally disgusted, occasionally entertained, and permanently fleeced, just as Washington wants.